Check out carmarshal.com. The link is in the description. They help support us.
All cops are bad. How modern police institutions negate moral responsibility. Anyone following the news is probably aware that body cam footage of Daniel Shaver's murder was released earlier in December, right after the officer who murdered him walked away with no conviction. A day after the video's release, Oklahoma prosecutors chose not to file any charges after a deaf man walking with his cane was killed when police fired a taser and 5 bullets into his chest, pelvis, and arms after he failed to hear them shouting at him. Also during the same week, an 11-year-old black girl was held at gunpoint, handcuffed, and stuffed into the back of a police cruiser by officers who were searching for a middle-aged, white, female suspect in Michigan. Meanwhile, an unarmed person was being shot to death in San Francisco by a rookie cop on his 4th day. As this post is written, U.S. police have killed 1,132 human beings in 2017 so far, and yet in spite of this ongoing state-sponsored terror, questioning the integrity or usefulness of police institutions is still somehow seen as a pretty extremist thing to do. There are a lot of very good reasons, however, that no one has ever written a song called Fuck THA Fire Department. History and Origins of the Police. A Tale of Two Law Enforcement Paradigms. Daniel Shaver and the cop who got away with murdering him. The police, or, more specifically, the policing institutions that exist today, are younger than most people imagine. The type of policing that exists today first emerged in France during the 1700s, and the earliest use of police officer only appears in the USA in 1794, while the first known use of police station is from 1817. Just 200 years ago. The concept of policing has existed for a long time, of course, but these cops are something else. Traditional concepts of policing. Watchmen and community self-policing. Long before the police institutions of today were established, policing was mostly a grassroots enterprise. In pre-industrial Europe, the law was usually enforced by volunteer watchmen who formed local groups known as the Night Watch or simply the Watch. With the exception of large cities, which is where empires, such as Rome, like to keep their armies, most towns and communities did not expect government authorities to deal with everyday criminal activity, so people did it themselves. While a lack of official oversight meant watch groups could be prone to corruption, the fact that similar groups appear all over world history shows that self-policing at the local level is a viable model that can spring up spontaneously in human society. Private security and mercenary forces. In cities with greater levels of crime, the watch might be assisted by inspectors or constables employed by the city's authorities to protect commerce and help with more serious crimes. Merchants and traders who had a lot of valuable goods typically hired private security guards to protect their wares. Even with the watch and a city official on duty, businesses did not expect the government to take responsibility for guarding their interests. It was, after all, their business. The modern police department. A government takeover of policing. Then, the police changed in a big way. As the feudal power structures of Europe broke down beneath a wave of revolutions in the 18th century, governments took a more active role in law enforcement, and the first centralized policing organization was created in France by King Louis XIV. The duties of the new police were bluntly described as a mechanism of class control over workers and peasants. Ensuring the peace and quiet of the public and of private individuals, purging the city of what may cause disturbances, procuring abundance, and having each and everyone live according to their station and their duties. While France's gendarmes were seen as a symbol of oppression in other parts of Europe, the French policing model spread during the early 1800s as Napoleon Bonaparte conquered much of the continent. By the mid-1800s, modern policing institutions, publicly funded, centralized police organized in a military hierarchy and under the control of the state, had been transplanted everywhere from Tsarist Russia to England and the United States. Power, paramilitary, and political policing. Policing became the exclusive right of governments as other law enforcement groups were absorbed into new and official institutions. The new police were not just tasked with serving the public, however they also protected the political power of their new employers. It was a revolutionary era and the new police were shaped by rulers facing a particularly mutinous population. The use of police as the vanguard of state power was a major development and it was adapted to repress popular movements all over the world. Early police organizations in the US, for example, pretty much handed blue uniforms to former slave patrols and anti-union mercenaries who had historically protected the interests of plantation bosses in the South and industrial capitalists in the North. For more on the historical links between slavery, anti-union security, and law enforcement, read Private Property is the Police State. The problem of modern policing. The negation of moral responsibility. This was a fundamental shift. Police were no longer organized as a response to the needs of communities but as an instrument of state authority. With government officials deciding the scope and extent of policing practices, watchmen became employees of the government and ordinary citizens no longer had any control over the police. A watchman's authority could be challenged if they pissed off too many peasants because it was the peasants who organized the patrol to begin with. The authority of the state, however, is trickier to challenge. Today, the police are a military hierarchy organized in a chain of command of captains, sergeants, etc. Patrols do whatever their superior officers say, those officers do whatever their superiors say, and so on into the bureaucratic abyss. To be part of the police, officers must obey orders, just as the members in any military must. Since failing to obey orders is a pretty quick and reliable way to leave a police force, cops who disobey orders are pretty rare, and only employed as officers very briefly. Because of this, cops lack what philosophers call moral agency. Moral agency and diffusion of responsibility. Moral agency is the ability to know whether an action is right or wrong. For example, if a bear kills a person, there is no moral issue because that's just how bears operate, but, if a person kills a person, they need to hire a lawyer because people typically have more options than bears do, which means they can be held responsible for their actions. Murder is not just killing, murder is having a choice not to kill and killing anyway. Without moral agency, there is no murder. In fact, the whole idea of justice assumes that moral agency exists, which is why most legal systems do not prosecute kids or folks with certain mental illnesses. If someone lacks the ability to do the right thing, it is pointless to punish them for not doing it. Modern policing deprives cops of moral agency at a structural level. With a militaristic chain of command as the institutional core, moral responsibility for the actions of individual officers is transferred to the abstract spook of governmental authority. The result is that nobody can be held responsible and the officer becomes an inanimate tool in the spooky hand of an unseen and unaccountable bureaucracy. The police officer becomes no more than a vessel for policies, totally devoid of agency and free of its consequences. And without agency, there can be no accountability. There can be no justice. Why all cops are bad? Yes, every last one. If you are stopped by a cop, then ACAB means all cats are beautiful, but, in any other situation, ACAB stands for all cops are bad or all coppers are bastards, depending on how edgy you wanna be. There is extreme social pressure from all sides to support the boys in blue, as the Ninja Turtles call them, and criticism of the police is supposed to be followed by reassurances that most cops are good or that it's just a few bad apples. But all of that sidesteps the actual problem, which is a structural problem. The fact that 3.3% of all injuries treated in U.S. emergency rooms are inflicted by police is not because some cops are unpleasant people, it is because the institutions are structured to shield officers from being held responsible for their actions as individuals. All cops are bad because no cop has moral agency. They might be a good parent or a good friend or even a good saxophonist, but they are not a good cop. Without agency, moral responsibility is negated and the result is that nobody is responsible for executing Daniel Shaver on his knees as he pleaded for his life. Nobody is responsible for Philando Castile being shot to death in front of his partner and her child, and nobody is responsible for firing the bullets that extinguished the life of a 12-year-old black child named Tamir Rice as he played in the park. Fuck the police is a moral statement. As the first paragraph of this post was written, 1,132 human beings had been slaughtered by U.S. police so far in 2017. As its last paragraphs are written, that number has grown to 1,142. And it will grow more by the time most of you read this. Instances of particularly despicable police violence, such as the execution of Daniel Shaver, sometimes force their way onto the newsreel, but the vast majority who are killed by police simply slip into the oblivion beneath the headlines. There are not enough hours each day to report on that much suffering. And none of this is going to change, either not until more of us have had enough. Not until our courage to speak out against the police is greater than the social and political pressure to deny that the problem exists. Not until more of us are more offended by cops shooting kids than by someone saying fuck the police. Fuck the institution of policing. Fuck the structural mechanisms that rob police of their humanity as much as they rob our mothers of their children. And even if your brother-in-law or insert family member or relative here is a really nice person when they wear that badge, fuck them, too. In solidarity. John Loritz. If you like these posts, please consider buying this writer a cup of coffee using PayPal or making a monthly donation using Patreon. It's like a voluntary subscription directly to an artist and journalist.
County, this is Charlotte County Cop Watch, and I wanted to explain what fair use is. You can use pieces of news articles if you're doing it for news reporting, you have commentary, and you're doing it for education purposes. So that's what fair use is, as you can see right here. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is to let you know I have just joined with Patreon. A nice thing with Patreon, I make no money on YouTube. They took the money away years ago, and so this is another way to give, and it's a nice thing too because you can give monthly. You can give $1, $5, $10, whatever. I do 4 to 5 hours a day on trying to wake the sheeple up on how corrupt it is and different ways that you can fight the corruption. So Patreon is a way that you can do it, and then of course the old way is still there. Donate to Charlotte County Cop Watch with PayPal or credit card. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 hours a day. I make no money, but the corruption happened to me and I'm sick of it, so I'm trying to wake people up. But my wife would love it if if we could get some help out there. There's 47,000 subscribers. Just think if each one of you subscribers just gave a, let's say, actually, yes, $1 a month. 47,000 subscribers gave $1 a month. That would be awesome. That's not going to happen. But anyways, that would be great if it did happen. But, do the math in your head. Just think about it. Like I said, 4 to 5 hours a day. I get no money from YouTube. YouTube has gone nuts. You can't do anything anymore. They're taking the money away everywhere. So these are a couple different ways that you can still help out with all this time that I put in. And as you know, I'm in a special situation where, at least I can do it. 4 to 5 hours a day. We have a cleaning company during the day. That's what allows me to do this, and we're debt free. So this is my hobby. I don't go fishing and all that other crap. I try to save the world. So help me out to make the wife happy, man. In fact, if you guys did give $1 a day, and there was 47,000 of you, and you did it, and each of you gave $1, and that was every month, oh my God, yes, I could quit. I could start suing them. Another idea too that we have is, if I got, some funds, we could actually contact everyone that has been ticketed and or arrested and put in jail and start sending them postcards to let them know we're here, and to see if everything went all right, and if it didn't, find out their story. So we could even do more investigations and more lawsuits. Lawsuits take money. So just think about that. 47,000 of you so far right now. $1 a day. I mean, $1 a month on Patreon or $5 a month Patreon, 10, 20, whatever. Just do the math in your head, help out. This is a lot of work every single day. Thanks.